You're not safe. Not behind that $200 smart doorbell. Not under that motion sensor light. Not even with that alarm system the police won't respond to for 11 minutes on average. That's how long it takes, 11 minutes, for law enforcement to arrive in the U.S. during an emergency. But guess how long the average home burglary lasts? Less than 90 seconds. You do the math. During World War II, families didn't wait for help. They turned their homes into war-ready bunkers with nothing but scrap metal, broken glass, and pure survival instinct. No Wi-Fi, no subscriptions, just raw layered defense that confused, delayed, and dismantled intruders before a single shot was ever fired. And the truth? Most of those forgotten tricks still outperform modern systems. If the grid goes down tomorrow, 9 out of 10 homes will be completely exposed. Let me show you how to not be one of them. Here are 5 WWII home defense tactics so effective, they're still used by military survival units today. Yet almost no one talks about them. Starting with number 5. The trapdoor cache, hidden in plain sight, and practically invisible to burglars. Let me ask you something most people never consider. Where is your most valuable gear hidden? Your backup generator key? Emergency cache? Spare weapons or ammo? If your answer is in a drawer or a safe, you're already behind the curve. Because during World War II, when homes were under threat of being searched or looted, people didn't just hide things, they concealed them in ways that made them functionally disappear. We're talking trapdoor caches, false walls, hollow floorboards, even pivoting shelves with concealed compartments. And these weren't the stuff of Hollywood spy flicks. They were common civilian countermeasures, taught directly by Home Guard manuals in Britain and resistance handbooks throughout occupied Europe. Imagine this: a pantry shelf that swings open to reveal a hidden tunnel beneath the house where vital documents, radios, or food were stored. It wasn't paranoia, it was necessity. And here's the kicker: 80 years later, the same tactics still work better than most digital lockboxes or commercial safes. Why? Because modern thieves are trained to look for high-value targets like safes and lockboxes. They'll take the whole thing if they can. But they don't waste time unscrewing baseboards or pulling up what looks like original 1930s hardwood. That's why even today custom hidden storage is used by high-net-worth individuals and security professionals, because the principle is timeless. Hide it where they won't even think to look. During World War II, some families hid documents under fireplace ash. Others used fake plumbing cleanouts to stash keys or maps. One resistance family in France reportedly hollowed out a piano leg to store a revolver. The level of creativity was staggering, and it wasn't just about storage. These hideouts were often built into choke points or fallback zones, doubling as last-ditch defensive positions. Fast forward to today. You can install magnet-triggered panels, spring-loaded drawers, or concealed floor hatches with minimal tools and even less money. A hidden compartment behind your bookshelf doesn't just protect valuables. It gives you strategic options if your home is breached. Here's the takeaway: concealment beats resistance. A smart intruder may beat your lock, but they can't steal what they can't find. World War II homeowners knew that their survival sometimes depended on a few square inches of hidden space. If you haven't built at least one invisible cache into your home, you're leaving yourself exposed. Start small. A hollow stair tread, a false HVAC vent, a dummy outlet plate. If they worked under Nazi occupation, they'll work during a blackout or burglary today. This isn't prepper paranoia. It's time-tested tactical thinking, and it could mean the difference between being looted and staying in control. 4. Booby-trapped entryways. When a tripwire was mightier than a lock, let's talk about something that would never make it into a modern home security ad, but absolutely should. You see, back in the 1940s, the concept of home defense didn't stop at locking the door. It extended to deterring, injuring, or at the very least terrifying the would-be intruder before they got through the threshold. Enter the booby-trapped entryway. No, I'm not talking about Rambo-style jungle snares. I'm talking about ordinary households rigging doors and windows with tripwires, hidden noisemakers, chemical irritants, and sometimes worse. In England, Home Guard instructors actually distributed pamphlets showing citizens how to string piano wire at ankle height across hallways, or anchor empty cans filled with nails to make sudden, shocking racket when a door opened. The goal wasn't always to hurt. It was to buy time. Time to grab a weapon. Time to alert the neighbors. Time to move your family to safety. What's wild is that many of these defenses can be replicated today with better materials, more precision, and absolutely no electricity. You can rig a doorknob to release a blast of compressed air, create a tripwire with a camping alarm, or even use reflective foil tied to fishing line to make disorienting flashes in a dark hallway. One of the most underused methods from the World War II era? The floorboard clack trap. They'd loosen a floorboard near an entry, attach it to a spring or tin plate beneath, and when stepped on, clack. The sound would echo like a gunshot in a quiet house. It didn't injure anyone, but it caused enough of a shock response that intruders often fled before discovering there was no firearm behind it. Statistically, even today, over 60% of home burglars will abandon their mission at the first loud or surprising noise. They're not tactical units, they're opportunists, which means if you can install a modern twist on these old-school traps, a battery-powered siren triggered by a fishing line tripwire, a DIY pepper spray fogger rigged to spray when a window opens, you're already ahead of the curve. And remember, these aren't traps in the illegal sense. These are early warning systems, legal in most jurisdictions as long as they don't cause bodily harm. They're exactly the kind of passive defense that made World War II homes such hard targets, and they work just as well in a blackout, civil unrest scenario, or plain old break-in today. Modern security focuses on after-the-fact detection. World War II home defenders, they focused on prevention. That mindset is what we need to revive. 3. The blackout perimeter. How total darkness gave homeowners the tactical advantage. Think modern outdoor lighting makes your home safer. Think again. During World War II, the most defended homes weren't lit up like Christmas trees. They were cloaked in total darkness. I'm talking pitch black. And it wasn't just because of enemy bombers overhead. It was tactical. It was psychological. It was about control. You see, during the Blitz, cities like London and Coventry imposed strict blackout regulations, not only to hide from Luftwaffe raids, but to give defenders the upper hand on the ground. When everything's dark, the person who knows the layout, every step, every corner, every obstacle, has a massive advantage over someone who doesn't. And that gave ordinary citizens the chance to flip the script on would-be intruders. Fast forward to today, and we've forgotten this principle entirely. We install floodlights, motion detectors, and yard beacons that shine like airport runways, basically giving intruders a map of our property. We light their path instead of confusing it. But back in 1941, British manuals encouraged homeowners to remove or disable all light sources unless they were manually controlled, low to the ground, and carefully shielded. They'd use blackout curtains so thick they'd block even a candle's glow. And outside, they'd create obstacles in the dark. Garden tools left at ankle height. Loose stones, spiked boards turned face down near windows, because in the dark, a twisted ankle is just as effective as an alarm. Even better, homeowners would use sound as a defense. Gravel paths that crunched underfoot, loose window screens that rattled loudly when touched. Some even tied cowbells to hedges or fences. In darkness, every sound is magnified, and every intruder is exposed. And here's where it gets fascinating. Studies done by modern criminologists show that intruders overwhelmingly prefer well-lit entry points. They'll pick the visible house over the dark one because they fear what they can't see. In fact, a University of North Carolina study of 422 convicted burglars found that 70% avoided homes that looked too quiet or too unpredictable. Blackout homes by design feel both. Here's how you bring this into 2025. Invert your thinking. Instead of lighting everything, focus on controlled darkness. Install blackout shades with fast drop cords. Use low-lumen red or amber LED flashlights near exits. Those protect your night vision, but still let you navigate. Put motion lights facing inward toward your own windows so that you can see the silhouette of anyone approaching, without helping them see you. And go a step further. Scatter obstacles only you and your family know about. Low planters, decorative rocks, even rope lines. In the dark, those become deadly slowdown zones. The World War II blackout wasn't about hiding in fear. It was about owning the darkness, creating an environment where you have the advantage. In a grid-down situation or riot scenario, your lit-up home becomes a beacon for chaos. But your blacked-out fortress? That's a mystery, an uncertainty. And intruders hate uncertainty more than they hate barbed wire. Master this tactic, and you're not just copying the past. You're resurrecting a battlefield-tested edge that still works better than anything on Amazon. 2. The false front. How World War II homeowners used deception to beat intruders. Without lifting a finger, let me tell you something that'll blow your mind. During World War II, some of the most secure homes weren't the ones with the thickest doors or the highest fences. They were the ones that looked like they had nothing worth stealing, or worse, for the intruder, that they were already fortified or actively defended. Welcome to the art of the false front, a psychological sleight of hand that tricked looters, invaders, and spies into walking right past a house without ever stepping inside. No alarms, no violence, just perception warfare. And it worked. In occupied territories like France, Poland, and the Netherlands, where resistance fighters operated from civilian homes, people knew better than to make their house look special. So what did they do? They camouflaged wealth and hid defenses behind intentional disorder. One of the most effective methods was the abandoned house look. They'd break a few front windows on purpose, leave paint peeling, scatter broken furniture near the porch, even smear soot on walls from burned newspapers or stoves. You know what it screamed to looters and patrols? Already hit. Nothing left. And it worked like a charm. But here's the other half of the trick. The illusion of being watched. Homes that couldn't be disguised as abandoned were made to look like fortresses. Fake guard posts. Sandbags made from pillowcases and dirt. Even painted broomsticks sticking out of upstairs windows like rifles. The Soviets used this in Leningrad to deter door-to-door saboteurs. In Britain, some families made homemade signage that read things like "Guard Dog on Premises," "Protected by Home Guard," or the infamous "Sniper Nest, Do Not Approach." None of it had to be true. It just had to make them doubt, and doubt is poison to an intruder's plan. Modern stats back this up. According to a 2022 FBI crime report, houses with visible security signage, regardless of whether a system is present, are 53% less likely to be burglarized. That's not just correlation. That's proof of what World War II survivors already knew. When people think they're being watched or think you've got backup, they move on. No one wants to be the guy who triggers a trap or gets caught in a crossfire. So what can you do with this today? You don't need to spend a fortune. Hang real-looking weathered security company signs near your gate, even if you don't use that service. Post CCTV and U-Spy signs by your windows, even if you don't have cameras. Get old boots, scuffed up and muddy, and leave them outside your door to suggest someone's always home. And here's a classic World War II trick that still works. Hang an extra-large dog leash and bowl by the back door, even if you don't own a dog. Make the illusion feel lived in. Make the threat feel unpredictable. The best part? These tactics don't rely on electricity, batteries, or internet connections. They're invisible on the power grid but blinding to the human brain. That's the essence of wartime defense. Not brute strength, not brute force, but misdirection, confusion, delay, and control. In a real emergency, whether it's a blackout, a riot, or something worse, the home that looks either worthless or war-ready. That's the one that survives untouched. Just like in 1943, when your front porch was as much a battlefield as the skies above Berlin. 1. The layered kill zone. How World War II civilians built defense in depth without firing a shot. You think security is a front door and a lock? Let me hit you with a dose of wartime reality. In World War II, families didn't just defend their house, they defended the approach to it. That's where this next tactic comes in. They created layered defensive zones, turning every path, hallway, and window into a nightmare of obstacles, noise traps, psychological deterrents, and physical barriers. But here's what makes it brilliant. It wasn't brute force. It was strategic delay. The goal was simple. Force the intruder to spend time, make noise, and get confused before they ever got close to you. It's the exact same logic used in military FOBs, forward operating bases, today. Depth equals survival. Let's break it down. During the Blitz, British Home Guard units issued literal maps of how to turn a small suburban home into a slow-drip gauntlet. The outer perimeter was your noise and exposure zone. Gravel paths, broken glass, thorn hedges, loose tin roofing tied to fishing line. The moment someone stepped on your property, they were heard. The next layer, mobility disruption. Low wires stretched across garden paths, spiked window boxes, oil-slicked stones near the drain pipes. Ever try to climb a wet pipe with thorns behind you and bells overhead? You don't make it far. But even if they got to the door, there was Zone 3, entry point fortification. crossbars, horizontal braces, doors that opened outward instead of in, so they couldn't be kicked. All of it created friction, and in close quarters, friction is fatal to the attacker. Here's the part most people miss. The home interior was also layered. Hallways were narrowed with furniture to create choke points. Mirrors were angled to expose intruders from behind. In some extreme cases, families left obstacles like children's toys, broken glass, or even fake blood trails inside their home to confuse, disorient, or terrify intruders. Resistance fighters in Belgium even laid out maze-like floor plans to stall occupying troops during raids. That's the kind of defensive thinking that doesn't depend on tech. It depends on geometry, timing, and psychology. Modern security systems, they mostly rely on single points of failure. One camera, one alarm, one deadbolt. But World War II families understood what professionals now call multi-layered threat engagement. If the first layer fails, the second catches them. If they get through the second, they're slowed by the third. Each layer isn't meant to be perfect. It's meant to stack, buy you time, buy you space, and wear down the attacker's will. In fact, FBI data confirms it. The longer it takes to break into a house, the more likely the intruder gives up. Homes that resist access for over 4 minutes? Over 60% of burglars abandon the attempt. You want to replicate this in 2025? Start at the edge of your property. Where does someone first step onto your land? That's your trip zone. Loud gravel, thorn hedges, motion lights pointed toward your own windows. Then, your interruption zone. Obstacles under windows, awkward fencing angles, fake cameras, or even solar-powered motion chimes. Then finally, your impact zone. Inside your doors. Reinforce them with horizontal deadbolts, not just vertical ones. Narrow the hallways. Angle mirrors for visibility. Place clutter tactically. Use what the military calls channelization, forcing the intruder where you want them to go. This isn't fantasy. This was wartime doctrine taught to millions of civilians across Europe. And it worked. Because even in the chaos of total war, when electricity failed, law enforcement was absent and danger was constant. The homes with layered defenses survived, not because they fought back harder, but because they made the fight unwinnable. You just walked through 5 forgotten home defense tactics that held back Nazi paratroopers, blacked out cities, and bought desperate families the seconds they needed to survive when no cavalry was coming. And here's the hard truth. Nothing's changed. The threats look different today, but the timelines haven't. Modern home invasions still happen in under 2 minutes. Disasters still knock out power grids in seconds. And when things go bad, they go bad fast. So you have a choice. Keep trusting gadgets that fail when the signal drops, or rebuild the mindset of the people who outlasted firebombings, ration lines, and foreign occupation using little more than gravel, shadows, and human grit. World War II wasn't just a military war. It was a civilian one. Entire neighborhoods became defensive networks. Families turned kitchens into strongholds. Teenagers learned how to tripwire their gardens and black out their windows with tar paper and hope. And it worked. Not because they had better tools, but because they had better instincts. Now it's your turn. Start with one layer, one hidden cache, one gravel path. But don't stop there. Reclaim what your grandparents knew by heart. Home defense isn't about tech. It's about timing, terrain, and total control. If this gave you ideas, pass it on. Share it with someone who still thinks a deadbolt is enough. And if you want more hard historical defense tactics that actually work when the grid goes dark or the rules stop mattering, you know what to do.